Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Shalom Klein, and I am so excited to be joined by my next guest, Lizzie Horvitz, who's the founder and CEO of Finch. Lizzie has a fascinating background, has served as the chief operating officer of an interesting company fighting to stop single-use water. And we're going to learn all about Finch and the amazing work around sustainability that Lizzie and her team are involved in. So, Lizzie Horvitz, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure. So I love to get to know the person behind the microphone. I want to go all the way back to your story when you were 16 years old, because it sounds like that was a very formative time that led to the business and organization that you're running now. Lizzie, tell us how you became so passionate about sustainability and the environment.
Sure. So if you remember back to 2004, obviously climate change was known by certain communities and scientists, but it was not in the mainstream like it is today. And so I didn't really know that much about it and had the opportunity to live off the grid in the Bahamas. It was actually a school, which is wild. So all of our water came from the rain. All of our energy came from solar panels and a wind generator. If it didn't rain, we couldn't shower, etc. But it was this beautiful way of living, obviously not bad in the Bahamas. And so the way that I explain it is that I sort of saw the solution before I fully understood the problem. And I think that really set me off, because a lot of people think when they first hear about climate change, they think wildfires and droughts and these really scary things. But I just saw this beautiful way of living that could be scaled and possible. And then just wanted to dedicate my life towards making that more of a reality for everybody.
Well, that's incredible. And I know that you have a joint MBA, MS in environmental management from Yale University, a bachelor's from Middlebury College, and you're living in Denver, Colorado. So you have continued your passion in this area. What's the story behind Finch? What do you and your team do?
So Finch is a platform that decodes products' environmental impacts to help consumers make better purchasing decisions. So what that means is it's really complicated to find products that are good for you and good for the planet. There's a lot of greenwashing out there where people say eco-friendly, all natural, things that aren't regulated and don't mean anything. And so it's really up to the consumer to do their own research, and many of them become apathetic or they get confused and give up. And so this actually came out of my personal experience, because I have this background that you just mentioned. Friends and family were coming to me saying, I just had a baby, what type of diaper should I buy, etc. And I didn't know all the answers. And when I looked online, there was not one source of truth that was accessible and fun to sort of read, but also based in real data. And so Finch is really meant to make this experience easier for everybody. So we have a browser extension where you go on Amazon, you type in body wash, we'll show you what our favorite body washes are, and if you already have a favorite, we'll show you what that score is, what we like about it, what could be better, and then a couple of alternatives in case you're interested in making a better decision.
Amazing. So what's the biggest challenge with rating consumer goods? You just talked a little bit about how Finch provides those ratings, but what's that challenge?
I'd say it's a twofold challenge, and it all comes down to the scarcity of data. So there's one type of data that is just academic research, right? Science is evolving. It's never quite settled. And so we are depending on academic papers that were published 2 months ago. And frankly, there's not, for everything we want to rate, there is not enough of dozens of peer-reviewed articles that all have the same outcome. So we really need to do some digging. And then when we do have clear data on, what the climate impact of something is, et cetera, then a lot of these companies, we have to depend on publicly available data. And while we have plenty, and that hasn't been enough to sort of restructure the algorithm, there are still companies that are not as transparent as we would like them to be, and we'd love them to share more.
Interesting, very interesting. So I want to segue over to the business side of things, because Lizzie, despite all the amazing work that you're doing, you are running a business, and you did start this company from scratch. What has that side of your experience been, and what advice would you share to fellow entrepreneurs just getting started?
It's a really good question. I think important background just quickly is that I never thought of being an entrepreneur. This was never in my plan. I thought that I would work at a massive company like Unilever for my entire career. And when I became chief operating officer of this company, I just fell in love with entrepreneurship, taking a company from inception to scale. My favorite part of it is that no 2 days are the same. I've been at this for 2 years, and I have not had any monotony in my life. So I've just really loved it, and I thought that that I'd be good at it, and so that's where my strengths are. I would say my one piece of advice is to find people who can help you do the things that you're not good at and that you don't want to do. Understanding your strengths and your weaknesses is the most important part. Nobody is a hero and can do all of this, and so for me, for example, the first two things that I did was I hired a lawyer and I hired an accountant because I don't want to spend any time in QuickBooks or reading through contracts, and that is the best, $300 a month that I'm spending because I get to focus on what really gives me life in the day, and that's not reading contracts.
Absolutely. This is certainly a theme because we talked about this earlier in the show as well. So talking about sustainability, we know that this is something that it's interesting. When people are focused on it, they're really focused on it, but otherwise they're really not. And I know that that's the mission of Finch. Of you're trying to rate products, trying to make sure that you're sharing as much knowledge and information with folks. So what is that evolution of sustainability? Where do you see things going? And do we have sort of a trajectory that we should be proud of, or are we in bad shape?
No, we have a trajectory that we should absolutely be proud of. And I was an environmental history major, actually, so this is really, really interesting to me. I think that for so long, the sustainability movement has left people out. So, back in the 70s and 80s, it was this crunchy vibe where if you weren't camping on the weekends, you didn't really fit in. And then, after a couple of other movements, it became sort of like the Gwyneth Paltrow vibe, so to speak, where it was like, if you're not spending $16 on a green juice with a metal straw, you're also not participating, right? I think the way forward is really this democratization of sustainability and accessibility for everybody. There's such a huge social aspect to this, and it's the movement where everybody can play a part regardless of who you are, where you're from, what you look like. And I think that's really exciting. And to your point, what used to happen was people were either dedicating their lives towards this, or they were saying, what, I don't care. And of course there are there's 20% of the population that just don't even believe in climate change or would never be interested in this. But that middle sort of 50 to 70% are progressive, believe that climate change is happening. They just don't have the time in the day to dedicate to this. And so that's really what we're here for, to say now it's super easy for even you to be able to be a part of this without turning your entire life upside down.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that information. So many companies have tried to rate products before Finch. Why are you the one that is going to be successful?
I think for two reasons. The first is pure timing. It has nothing to do with me or my team. It is that the world was not quite ready for this yet. And you're absolutely right. We were, not even in the first 5 or 10 companies to try something exactly like this. The world wasn't ready, and now as Gen Z is becoming stronger in their purchasing power, they care about the environment more than any other issue facing the world, and they are demanding this type of information from companies, and companies now need to figure out how they can display information in a way that resonates with their consumers. And so I think the demand is larger than it's ever been. So that's number one. Number two is, I think what I just said before, honestly, is that the mistake that companies before us have made, from my experience, is that they have been focused so much on those hyper green 5% of the population who are, deciding to be vegan and not fly anymore and things like that. And we love those people. We need those people on the planet. But what we really need more of are, a lot of people doing sustainability imperfectly, just doing their part. And no company really before us has been speaking to that middle population that says, it's okay if you want to continue to drive your Ford F-150, but these are other ways that you can participate. It's just it's not inducing guilt, which we find really important.
Well, Lizzie, I've certainly learned a lot in our conversation. I want to make sure our listeners know where they can learn more about you and Finch. Can you share that website and contact information with our listeners?
Sure, it's ChooseFinch.com. If you want to email us directly, it's hey@ChooseFinch.com. And then our Instagram and Twitter is just @ChooseFinch.
Fantastic. Lizzie Horvitz from Finch, thank you so much for educating our listeners. I look forward to following your story and staying in touch. You could download our podcasts, including today's conversation, on your favorite podcast app. Just go to Apple Podcasts, go to your favorite podcast app and look for Get Down to Business, as well as visit our website, shalomklein.com. We've got to squeeze in a quick break. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. More Get Down to Business when we return.